Today we're gonna teach you 5 amazing grilling recipes you can try this summer.
Okay, so what we have here is our 1.5 pounds of peeled shrimp. So the first thing we're going to do is put anywhere from half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. We're then going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of pepper. Now you don't absolutely have to add this, but I like to add a little bit of garlic powder. And finally, again, not absolutely necessary, but I like to add a little bit of paprika or chili powder as well. Alright, we're then going to take a lime and squeeze the lime into the shrimp. Now the important part is to make sure you mix this all up really well, so I'm going to mix it for a while. If you can, try to find a kind of a flat skewer. That's going to make your life a lot easier, because when you flip it, the shrimp won't turn. The alternative is if you're using wooden sticks, just use 2 sticks so that the shrimp won't turn when you have to flip it on the grill. The other trick here is to pierce the shrimp in 2 parts so that it doesn't turn. Again, as you can see here, I'm piercing it on one side and then through to the other side so it doesn't turn. So I'm going to put the skewers down right over the coals. As you can probably see, the coals are kind of arranged somewhat parallel right under the skewers. Okay, these have been on for about 8 minutes, and we're going to check on them and see if we need to flip them. Okay, wow, as you can see, they're kind of turning a golden brown color, so that's perfect. We're going to flip them, and I predict we're going to leave them on for about another 7 minutes. Alright, now these have been on for approximately another 6.5 minutes, and we're going to check on them and see how they look. Look pretty amazing. I don't know if it's clear in the camera, but the color of them is kind of a dark orange brownish color, and that's what you want them to look like. So we're going to go ahead and pull these off.
To make bacon wrapped asparagus, you will need washed asparagus. I'm using thick cut bacon. You will need black pepper and some paprika. You will also need to soak this toothpicks or small skewers, and the reason you need to soak them so that they don't catch on fire. So once you wash and pat dry it, you're gonna cut 1 inch from the bottom of asparagus. Because I'm using thick sliced bacon, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it in half. But if you're using thinly sliced bacon, you don't need to cut it in half, you can use the whole piece. So you take 3 or 4 asparagus and 1 strip of bacon, and you start at the bottom and secure the bacon, and then go all the way to the top. And just use 1 toothpick to secure the bacon at the top. Just like that. So now that we have the asparagus wrapped in bacon, the asparagus is gonna be so flavorful because of bacon, so we don't really need to spice it. It's gonna be delicious as it is, but just if you want some extra flavor, you can go ahead and spice it with black pepper and paprika. We're ready to put them on the grill, so let's do it. You see we have coals here in the middle, and it's medium-low heat. We don't want the bacon to catch on fire, so if it does catch on fire, just move them over so that it's not directly over the coals. And we're gonna cook them 4 to 6 minutes per side. As you can see, it's smoking quite a bit, but as long as it doesn't catch on fire, it's okay. It actually gives it more flavor, and it's gonna be really smoky and delicious. About 5 minutes and we're ready to flip it. So as you can see, you want it gold brown like that, and you want to let it cook just for as long on the other side. Okay, it looks like some of them are pretty well cooked, so we're ready to take them off the grill.
First thing you want to do is when you get your lobster tails, oftentimes they're going to be frozen. So you want to put them in cold water until you can do this. When you can bend the lobster and the tail of the lobster touches the top of the lobster tail like that, then you know it's ready to cook. To cut this thing, we're just going to go ahead and cut it straight in half down the middle. A lot of people like to open it up and split it and just cook it split. I think it's simpler just to go ahead and cut it right down the middle, and it is pretty tough, so you're going to have a good knife and you're going to have to press pretty hard to get this thing cut in half. And there we are. And we're going to cook it meat side down like that. You can see these aren't the biggest lobster tails, and you know, usually the bigger the better, but this is what the store had today, so that's what we're working with. For the lobster, the first part is to drop in some butter. This pan is already pretty hot. It's been over the coals, and you see that start melting immediately. Now the butter is melting, we're going to throw in some garlic in there too. So now that the butter is melted and the garlic is in there, I'm going to move it off the fire, and we're going to start putting in our lobster. And what I'd like to do is just cover it in the butter and garlic, and then drop it right on the grill. Meat side down. Not directly, you move it slightly off the coal. It's still very hot. Now, because of how small these lobster tails are, you only need to really cook them for about 5 to 10 minutes. Use your judgment based on the heat and how close they are to the coal. But 5 to 10 minutes is all you need with the lobster tail this size. Alright, these have been cooking for about 7 minutes, so let's see what they look like. Okay, wow. Yeah, you can see from the brown that they're done. And also, they feel pretty firm. Okay, so these are coming off. we're going to remove the stems and we're going to add the spices to the mushroom. First, you're going to add a little salt on the inside. Next, you're going to add some pepper. Last, you're going to add some finely chopped garlic. We're going to grill the mushrooms. Once these are on the grill, I'm going to cook them for about 8 minutes before adding the cheese and finishing them off. Alright, now that these have cooked for about 8 minutes, it's time to put on the cheese and let them bake. We're going to let these bake for a while and then check to make sure the cheese is melted. When the cheese is melted, you know they're done. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how to make the dry rub for the steak, which is critical for skirt steak, because this is not something that you have to leave it overnight or that has to sit in the refrigerator. This is something that you can do and spice it and put it right on the grill. So the first part, you want to take a tablespoon of chili powder, and this is for a proportion for about 1 pound of, just a little more than a pound of skirt steak, so you can adjust it accordingly. Also, if you don't like your steak that spicy, you can make a little less of this dry rub. 1 tablespoon, about a little less, of brown sugar. You want 1.5 teaspoons or even 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. And cumin is a really key ingredient. Some of these things are not absolutely necessary, but cumin is a very key ingredient for skirt steak. 1.5 teaspoons of dried oregano. Alright, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Put about a teaspoon of salt, preferably sea salt, right, and about a teaspoon of cracked pepper. And then we're going to mix it all up. So the first thing you want to do is take the large steak that you bought, and you're going to cut it up into little smaller rectangular sections. And when you do this, it's important, as you can see, the grain of the meat runs this way. So for this part, we want to cut it with the grain, like this. So we have our steak here, and I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to it, as well as some lemon, or preferably lime. We don't have lime, so we're using lemon juice, like that. And then you just want to mix it to make sure it's all over the steak. And now finally we're going to put the spice on the meat. You want to make sure it's a good layer on all sides of the meat. And then you just want to mix it up a little bit to make sure the spice is evenly distributed on the steak. Now, as you can see here, we've got some spice left over. It was too much for the quantity that we have here. This is good for about 1.5 to 2 pounds. So what we're actually going to do is keep that spice, and we can use it in chimichurri, which we'll teach you how to make in a different video. Alright, so the great thing about skirt steak is that it doesn't have to cook for very long. You can prepare this, have it on the grill, and have it off the grill all in a matter of about 10 minutes. So the cooking time for a rare, medium rare type of steak is about 2.5 minutes on each side. So that's what we're going to cook ours. If you like your steak more well done, obviously you have to adjust, but just keep in mind you don't want to keep this skirt steak on for too long. So we've got our timer to 2.5 minutes, and here we go. And this is being cooked over, I don't know if it's clear in the camera, but it's being cooked over white hot, very, very hot coals. Alright, so now we're going to flip the steak and cook it on the other side, also for 2.5 minutes. It's been 2.5 minutes, and we've actually made some adjustments here to get these pieces fully cooked, because it's a small cooking area. It's also very cold outside. It's about 40 degrees out here right now. So it's ready to come off. You're going to put it in a piece of foil like this and wrap it up and let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes once it's out. Okay, as you can see, it's wrapped now, and we're going to rest it for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, now remember in the beginning of the video I told you that when you cut the steak to prepare for cooking, you want to cut it along the grain, which is running here, and we cut it like this. When you cut the steak for eating, you want to cut it against the grain, like this, because that makes it break up and be very tender and easy to chew. If you cut it like this, it's going to be very chewy, and it's not going to be as tender. Also, as you can see, I'm going to be cutting a little bit at an angle. That's just a presentation thing. You don't have to do it, but it definitely looks good that way.